Welcome to Event Logistics Lab.
Thank you for having me, Gregory. Such a pleasure to be with you and
Yeah,
to make it happen. Finally, that's been in the making for a while.
I know the pleasure is all mine. I'm honored to occupy 45 minutes to an hour of your time to dive into a topic that we are both super passionate about, and that's conferences and really larger events. You have covered Dreamforce first on the Salesforce side. You've seen some really big shows with a lot of moving parts. Um, how did you get into this world?
Oh my
And
God.
how did we
Do you have
stumble
time?
into,
I
yeah.
don't think 45 minutes is going to be enough.
But obviously, seeing events of all spectrum, kind of moving from the marketing world into just kind of the thought leadership world. What about these large scale conferences or events keeps you in this industry, keeps you passionate? Like, what brought you here, and what's taking your attention the most these days?
For sure. Yeah, now it's what 20 years sort of history. So it's getting longer and longer story. But to make it super quick, I started blogging about events in 2007. That blog became EventMB. Now it's called Skift Meetings. That was acquired by Skift in 2019. So that took me 12 years of blogging. So a lot of people discovered me for LinkedIn in the past 3 years. Obviously surprised that I could write about events, but I had like 12 years, well, actually 14 at the time, years of writing before then for the events industry and doing content for the events industry for a long time. And so I've done a ton of analysis in event tech. I've worked for two event tech companies, Wapcard and Hopin, during the pandemic. I was laid off by Hopin and started my current company in 2022 called BoldPush. And I started a newsletter. There's now 37,000 subscribers and doing content on LinkedIn and doing content in general, but also consulting for a number of different players, a lot of event tech companies still. That's a big part of what I do, but also a lot of events, corporate brands that do their own user conferences and larger trade shows, as well as associations. So across the spectrum in strategy. And yeah, as part of it, as part of my content production, since I'm solo now, I don't have to respond to sort of editorial needs and inexistent budgets. I can travel and go places and attend events, which I feel is important because if you talk about events without being at events, what are you really talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for many years I did that too, but I always like, whenever I couldn't talk about things that I knew, whether it wasn't like, I wasn't working very closely to events, I was a media person, I was doing analysis and research. So that was my way to compensate the lack of like hands-on experience. Today, I'm more hands-on for sure. Yeah, I get to attend Dreamforce, Inbound, CES in January, South by Southwest, and all of these events too. Actually, the way I attend those, it's in line with my content production. It's a means for me to find opportunities to share ideas and best practices to the wider event community. And that's what we do in the newsletter, in our community, in our platform. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, what a fun journey to be able to say like, yep, my whole purpose to go to this conference is to uh, apply my learnings, to analyze what's going on between the moments, and to really be that true thought leader for our industry on what's working, what's not working, what was super memorable, what everyone should be doing. And what I love most about the content that you push is that it is frameworks. It's very tangible to be able to take something that you are publishing and bring it into circulation within your planning team and put that into action. So first, I just want to say thank you for everything that you are doing for the industry. Thank you for sharing your story of how you got to where you are. And you hit on something there of the event tech piece of it, but a lot of our attention these days is going to obviously the topic of AI. I just recently went to PCMA. Spark AI is their, homegrown product. The AI and event tech arena took a big part of the expo floor. Content about AI was happening throughout the duration of the day. In the most recent event tech landscape post that you have, you mentioned that you wanted to focus on AI native platforms, and that bubble from Q4 of 25 into Q1 of 26 went from this big in your graph to a humongous portion of that. And in that post that you just had, you said that obviously AI is going to be integrated into all event tech. So we can expect that AI bubble to almost disappear. Talk us through a little bit of like the logic behind how event tech platforms specifically should be thinking about AI, and what this means for that bubble as you are thinking about the landscape of AI in our industry.
For sure. So just to contextualize for everybody, anybody listening here, the event tech landscape is this little graph with a bunch of logos that represent all the technology companies, events industry, organized, I guess, to the safest possible way into categories, because these categories have created a bunch of drama. To be honest, like it started 3 years ago now, as a way. I mean, I've done publications for many years to classify event tech. We did a publication back in the days called the Event App Bible, which was when event apps were big.
Sure.
So I'm dating myself here. I think we started in 2013 or something like that. So we did these vertical publications with an analysis of all these platforms. And obviously I don't have the time, capacity, or need to do something like that today. I don't think it's like relevant as well to what we're doing today. There's much better ways to search and organize this information. And so initially I decided to do a map of the companies, the hot companies, not everybody, just like the ones that I thought were like hot right now. But immediately I got incredible amount of, how do I define it? Love from
Sure.
event tech CEOs that obviously we're saying, oh, we should be here. Why you're adding these people here? And so not having time for drama and stuff like that, I ended up essentially listing pretty much everybody, to be honest, that is out there doing event tech. I guess there's a purpose for that too. In categories that are pretty much wide, to be honest, like the only one software category is pretty much a category that doesn't really exist in the market. It's just a way to make everybody happy without having a lot of drama. But obviously there is constant analysis when we do further analysis and depth when we do event tech selection projects for our clients, which we're involved with in terms of what we select and what we recommend. I get very laser focused in those. And I remember all the drama from the CEOs as well when I need to drive budgets as well, but I'll leave that on the side. But yeah, other than that, the conversation was it's a pretty niche one, because we started to identify AI as a category, right, within the landscape. But I mean, it feels obvious that with time, AI is going to become a structural foundation of all technology companies out there. So it's just a matter of time until when we retire the category to just move those companies into their categories according to what they do. Right now, I think it signifies almost like a differentiation between the legacy event tech companies and all of those. Despite all of those companies are starting to adopt AI pretty much aggressively right now.
Yep.
And so this convergence of like those that started natively being AI first with an AI approach to whether it's like a chatbot or like some, framing on top of Claude or whatever they have, repurposing with prompts. So with those companies with the old guard, but I think they are going to converge eventually, and so we will redefine that. And I think that we won't discuss AI for events, as we're not calling social media marketing anymore. It's just marketing, and social media is an
Yeah.
aspect of it. I think it's just the same path that we've seen again and again.
Let's go a layer deeper on that topic of like the definition of AI native seems to be continuing to evolve here as well, right? So I think when AI first became a focal point of platforms, it was perceived as that kind of prompting chat interface for you to be considered AI. Uh, is that holding up for you, or are you seeing that AI native these days means that there's automations beyond the capability of code, where AI is being called upon to enhance the overall automation of the platform? Break it down a little bit to me of like what you perceive as current state of AI native.
Yeah, I think where we're getting at, I mean, obviously there's people that are still using ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude in the way it was shipped in 2022, which is prompting to get themselves to do more of the repetitive tasks, to fill up whenever they don't have the capability or the people resources to do marketing and basic stuff and get some ideas. Then there's the more advanced kind of use of it with custom GPTs and custom platforms that have been built still around the major platforms there. And so people that are starting to add a little bit more with projects, they're adding more context within those existing platforms. And then there's those that are building a little bit more. And obviously, one of the examples that I always go back to that I cover in my newsletter was HubSpot and Inbound, where they built
Yeah.
their own session selector platform for the attendee using Claude as a wrapper. That was the word I didn't remember earlier, wrapper,
Yep.
around Claude, which is essentially a way to use Claude's intelligence to make sense of the data. And I think this is the key use case for the future, where the people are talking about agentic AI could be interesting to a certain extent. I mean, you see these implementations of social media of a person that says, I have 7 agents that are doing all of these tasks for me and they give me reports. But at the end of the day, if you look at the end result of that, it's usually like a report about what are the key topics trending on YouTube. I mean, yes, I'm sure there's a interest in application of that, but really, I mean, it doesn't really impact the way our day-to-day operation as event professionals. I feel that the biggest impact is going to be on applying very smart OS or CPUs, however you want to call them, to define intelligent, AI agents in the form of like bringing Claude's intelligence to our data, to our process. And this is exactly what was announced with Coworker, with Claude. And I think that's where we're getting to more to where we need to be, where we really have a way to record our processes, show it to AI and say, do these tasks for me exactly the way I do it within my desktop or within my environment, or train AI intelligence to operate within data or use cases that are very specific to our company and what we do. And I'm recently out of a large project with an event tech company where we've been working on a product. We're essentially bringing that intelligence of AI to very specific use cases. Now, understanding these use cases and the application of it is the game for now. It's what the game is. And I think there's a lot of time being wasted right now in using AI to chase objectives that are completely irrelevant and do not move the needle.
Yeah, you hit on so many good things there of kind of working our way backwards of the AI is still a tool, right? It is going to be a huge driver in efficiency when applied correctly. But the application of that uh, does require process change, and process change for any organization is a challenge. And there has to be a willingness from the receiving end to be able to want to make that change. And it's usually by way of easy application. With our industry, I do think I keep coming back to this two keywords: trust and control, when it comes to AI. And event planners specifically have, for a lack of a better term, issues with both of those things, right? I've been burned by my suppliers, my stakeholders, my internal team, my coworker, whatever have you. So I keep things closer to my chest. And when I do that, I am in control of the information that I am responsible for. The challenging thing for me about AI is that you have to, by nature, kind of relinquish a little bit of control, and you have to trust that the information that you are receiving back is accurate. So to go back to your example of an implementation where you are diving deep and you're building those base prompts and you're creating this effective tool, would you say that if there are errors, hallucinations, whatever have you in the output of that, our core planner in our industry is going to have a harder time adopting to the change management of that tool completely? And where does that kind of show up for you?
I mean, I feel that anywhere, any type of business application where there's like a strong attention to quality and details is not going to be a perfect use case for AI. I mean, I see it even from a content production standpoint. Whenever I do use AI for content, the output requires an incredible amount of work to get to the stage where it's like not even usable. I think it's still like an idea I need to work on to make it successful. And so it depends on the levels of operation, right?
Yep.
If we're thinking about standard average product or service where really doesn't really matter much if there's mistakes and errors and it's part of your quality standard, fine. We operate in an industry that is very attentive to details, and like detail, we always stress that details matter. And so I'm seeing a lot of sessions, descriptions, and websites, and convince your boss templates and registration pages with language that is obviously coming from AI.
Yep.
And my question to you is, how is that going to convert? How is that going to drive people to attend? How is the session that has been scheduled, like completely created by AI, provide value to the attendees to the stage where they're going to be coming back? Now, can AI be a tool that can be used to get better sessions, better pages? Absolutely, but not by means of outputting the user-facing content, but rather as a feedback mechanism, as a data analysis tool. But even there, right, even with data analysis, using AI, closed AI environments for my clients where I control everything, still there's hallucination, there's incorrect data, there's results that have been thrown at me that are not necessarily, they do not necessarily matter. To get to a real insight, I have to go through 10, 15 iterations. And so it depends on the quality. Now, can you replace an intern type of work? Absolutely, I think you can, but then again, would you give an intern the responsibility of the copy for your registration page? Well, if that's your standard of event, great.
Sure.
You're going to be doing great. If you're still making money out of it and everybody's happy, absolutely be my guest. The clients I work with, the events I attend, no,
Yep.
that's not a use case for them.
For most planning teams, uh, where would you rank kind of the investment they should be putting into AI and in their current kind of planning cycles as we move into 2026 and beyond?
Well, I feel that if we're really looking at some of the applications of AI today, and so where planners say that AI is having the most impact for them, which is marketing operations slash automations and data analysis, which to me is really the whatever the meat of this AI conversation here. Well, I think you should ask yourself, what would we pay a mid-level person in this role? And I think now you have the opportunity to really create custom systems through Claude is like the one that is coming up again and again for me, and it's like the one, but also Gemini, to be honest, if they standardize it, make it easier for enterprise to use specifically tools like Notebook LM. I mean, it's extremely powerful in terms of data analysis specifically, way better than ChatGPT and Claude, in my opinion. So there's goods and bads. Like we're really literally talking about a couple of $100 investment per month per platform, plus probably a solid 10, 15, 20K of probably someone guiding it from a consulting perspective, or the time that you have to spend collectively as a team to figure out what's the use of that. But eventually, I mean, honestly, if you're paying 50K for a mid-level marketing person, 50K should be your budget. If
Yep.
you're spending 10K for data analysis, 10, 15K for an agency, that should be your budget to internalize that. I think a lot of us are asking themselves those questions, especially in the type of market, the job market where we're operating in, where finding the right people for your business, where everybody's going fractional, everybody's going freelancer right now, even in our industry. That means you got to have 5 hours of someone's time for the week for $10,000. Well, I mean, probably I want to spend that $10,000 better, and really try to give it a go at this AI thing and make it work for me.
Yeah. This is a perfect segue into just kind of like the role of the event planner in this kind of transition into an event strategist mindset. So segueing into another infographic that you have is kind of this comparison between event planner and event strategist. And I'm just going to read the first line off of this that says, the event was great, is the event planner role. But the event strategist role is, here's how you complete your ROI report. I think there's great power in building on what you just said, is if you don't have the skills to fully be that event strategist, or maybe you're a more junior person vying for a more senior role, this to me is also a place where AI, specifically like a Claude as a coach, in engineering some prompts to kind of come up with ways to think about this, can really be impactful on this journey between event planner and event strategist. To your point of like applying budget to that, a few $100s to help you move into that strategy realm, is that a good way to kind of think about it, would you say?
I think so. Gregory, I mean, to be honest, what is my key skill here? I told you I do a lot of things. I do consulting, I do content and all that. But like if I have to bring it down to one thing I'm able to do, and I've been able to do for the past 20 years, has been to anticipating by 6 to 9 months what's going to happen in the industry consistently and with a good track record. I would say I've got a few things right for the years. When I was talking about apps, when I was talking about engagement, when I was talking about virtual events in 2018, when I was talking about some people needing to become event technologists as a role in 2019. And I think, what pretty sure about what we're living through right now is that whenever I work with teams, regardless of the client that I work with obviously some degrees and a delta, there's always like constant variable within all of these projects. And it's the fact that there's no analysis in place, there's no tech integration, there's no attribution, there's no conversion tracking, there's no measurement of the event. And so if we take that away, then the job of planning events, in corporate events, I was attending a corporate event recently, and it felt to me like a great wedding. That's what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the attention of the planners were looking at, I mean, no shame. I love great weddings and I love awesome parties, but I don't think that's what business events are about. And so when I look at all of this attention to the lights and the purple lights and the centerpieces and like, you know, the linen and the tables and all of these amazing things, I get the attention to detail, how important it is, but I go to the same teams and then they don't have a clue about what the impact of the event has been. And what I mean by that is what happened afterwards. What was your pipeline? How much did you convert? What, you know, then, you know, that your job, you're going to lose your job.
Sure.
That's what is going to happen, because it's going to reach to a stage. We're going to have like high cycles when your money is flowing in and you'll be able to spend the money without accountability, and everybody's going to be eventually happy because nobody really cares because there's a lot of abundance. But when the abundance stops and it feels like we're entering into that cycle, and we head towards a downward trend, well, the planner or the event person is going to pay the price for it. And that's what's driving my conversation about shifting everybody to strategist more than planner. Because honestly, the operation side of things, yes, it could be more challenging. It is challenging. I'm not diminishing by one single inch how important it is, the operation part of events. But I mean, you kind of get it, especially for like corporate events. We're not planning like, you know, World of Concrete. We're not doing CES, right? It's just a room, multiple rooms, whatever. Like, it's, even if you work, in most cases, these people work with agencies. So it's not even for them to think about so what are you really doing?
Yeah.
As a corporate event planner? What are you sitting down and say, oh, I think this year we should go purple? I mean, what is the benefit of that for the business? I think that, you know, again, in other aspects, if you work in advertising, yes, maybe your job is to decide the mood of a campaign, but then you track what the impact of the campaign was, see if you were right or wrong. In events, it doesn't seem we like to close the loop, and I feel that has opened the industry to the vulnerability that this industry has. That it's nobody understands the role of event planners. Nobody understands the value of planning events. We are always the last to come back, right? During the pandemic, first to go, last to come back. First budget item that gets cut is events. Well, I mean, there's obviously the incapacity from leadership to understand the value of it, but there's also the lack of capability from our industry to explain the value of events from a business perspective and build that case. Because without that case, we're glorified party planners.
I knew it was coming. Events without data is party planning. Is that how that quote goes?
Yeah.
For the person who hasn't made this transition, two questions. How can one start to move beyond logistics into strategy? And then how do you also get a voice at the table to say the work that I'm doing on the ground matters to your pipeline? So how do we shift the thinking, and then how do we advocate for a seat at the table?
I think at the end of the day, you have to be a great. I think being a professional in general is about being a great entrepreneur, and you have to be an intrapreneur within a company. You have to be able to create a business case for your event and a business plan, right? I interviewed a couple of years ago now, who became the chief events officer at Time Magazine, and he shared with me the process of getting that role. And for him, it was about creating a business plan. Like it was his business. So within the company, and went to the CEO, the official CEO, he was the other CEO in the company. He went to her and pitched this business plan with clear objectives, clear returns. Having that type of conversation is what it's expected in a business environment that is not a nonprofit or a sporting event. But even there, right, there's really, I mean, anybody that operates events as a business, and so I'm talking about the event owners, the big ones, right, the Informa, the RX, the QuestX, the Hive. There's a strong attachment to all these business metrics. These events don't happen without profitability, right? And so they have a completely different way of approaching the event as a product than the corporate, where events are used as a marketing mean. And so, how to go back to your question, you are a great entrepreneur. You're able to create a business case that is data backed and is data rich. And so, if you don't have the data, because again, that data is instrumental to get a seat at the table. So, if you want to get a seat at the table by means of opinions, you're going to be a great politician, which sometimes is also needed. But you're a politician, and it's my opinion versus yours. And if you're the boss and I'm not the boss, your opinion is in most cases going to win, because listen, the CEO's wife, sometimes they attended a wedding together and they saw the taco making station, and now they want to see it there. And like, it's their opinion versus yours. But if you come and say like, no, I don't like the taco station per se, it's just like my opinion versus yours. If you say, well, we tried the taco station and on our feedback forms, 50% of the attendees said it was crap. Well, now we're talking, right? So you're like, your boss then has to go against data, and it makes it way more difficult for any boss that has sort of, obviously, it's mental sanity is there. They would, at least have a proper conversation about it. Now, if your boss keeps on going and says, no, this is the way I want it, find another job. That's what I recommend. It's like you are, or play the opinion game. So data-backed business case, and then also a little bit of people skills, not just within your team, not just with operations, but also with other teams. Because like one of the biggest missing factors today is how salespeople within a company specifically act upon whatever has been generated. And that gap, either we focus on that for 2026 and like closing that gap, or again, you generate a lot of interest and attention and marketing and leads and pipeline that doesn't get converted. We have some stats that I think Swapcard put out. There's like 94% of leads don't even get downloaded from an app. And so what are we talking about here when there's this in action? Because salespeople don't have it in the job description. I get it, because it's like too up there for them. They don't need to participate at events. Okay, I get it, but you need to fix this. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I love the connection to data point, to data tracking, but also kind of dipping beyond the realm of the event to tie it into departmental initiatives. And I think that's the real shift of that, right? Of to be able to track ROI, it's identifying the metric that we care most about at the time of the event or immediately following the event, but then it's playing it out and doing the extra due diligence to see how much converted out of that pipeline, if pipeline was the metric, right? And it's it's being a participant beyond just the execution of the event is kind of what I'm hearing you say as well, correct?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, then, the event is seen as a cost, and this is a problem. And it's like a pure cost, then it can become a marketing cost, or it can become a huge opportunity. And I
Yeah.
feel that whoever within, there's some companies that are like really forward thinking towards events, and there's like CEOs that truly have a gut feeling about events and they endorse them and they use them despite the loss of money. And this is something I want to make clear. I've talked to numerous CEOs, I've interviewed them, where they share with me, well, we run the event at a loss, but we know it's important for us. And so that statement for me is twisted because that means that your team is not making a good job of explaining to you, CEO, what the real impact of your event is. So you're getting it without your team displaying it to you. So if it's really a cost, you shouldn't be doing your event like you do it today. You should find another way of doing it. Otherwise, it should be something that drives something, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be direct conversion. I mean, I talk about 70, 50, like some research, 50 to 100 touch points for a sale in B2B. 50 to 100 touch points. So a great thing about an event is that it collects like 10 to 15 touch points between all the comms and like staying at the event. You can do so much with a user conference or with a booth at a show. You can do so much. But then again, you have to have clear what you're trying to achieve here, whether it's monetary or PR or NPS or however we want to call it. Eventually, I would love to see the prominence of ROI, but there's obviously other things that can be achieved with events that go beyond ROI for sure.
Yeah, I think to build on that, some of your findings say that the more email marketing, the better, right? And expand on those touch points. But what I think we are also finding with the importance of events is the human to human connection. And transitioning that into an interesting stat is out of a recent survey that you just ran as we entered the year, 50.8% of the planners that you polled out of a group of over 700, right, identified that connection, networking, and appointments were the main attendance drivers. So we can get blasted with email, all day. It will potentially get us there. But to your point, when we are there for connection, for the networking, for the actual human to human interactions. How should we be playing that up to leadership, back to kind of your other point of convincing the CEO of the importance of the events, of the more connection points that we can create, the more networking opportunities or different content forms, touch points that we can create within that environment. How does that show up? And obviously, based on this stat, it's more important, or one of the most important drivers of people coming to your event, would you say?
I mean, obviously, here again, being a data minded person, I don't want to generalize here. I think like there's different product categories, and in certain verticals, events are top of mind, so important. If we're making a decision to buy a software for, I don't know, $3.5 million, is it going to happen through an email? Is it going to happen through a campaign on social media? I mean, how is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And so I feel that within those deals that move the needle in B2B, events play a strong role. Now, I mean, there's still going to be transactions below a certain amount of money that are going to be happening online, and online marketing and social media and a combination of the two still plays a big role. And I think, we shouldn't just say, oh, events per se, that's it, and be sort of radical in this approach. But realistically, the amount of touch points, the quality of the conversations, and the fact that the bombardment of what is happening right now online in terms of social media that are losing their traditional place of what it was for business from the past few years, right? Other than a few that are kind of kept intact of what the first wave was in the 2010s and early 2020s. Right now, they're transitioning into something else that makes it very dangerous to do business over, or not as predictable, because they're changing the very nature of them. I mean, even like, if you take threads, for example, I post about a show that I like, and immediately in the comments, I have people insulting me. I'm like, how is this happening? Like, it's like, even basic stuff. So can you imagine doing business over something like that? It's highly concerning for me. So other than those, this platform kind of loss of identity, where brands are a little bit, on their fences, or bombardment from brands is like repetition of messages, bombardment of content, data that is like wild. My data is in the wild. I got 5, 6, 7 spam emails per day because I've been enlisted of event planners or whatever, event industry people. Boom, I got everything from AV to so many. My email is in the wild, or texts. So I am constantly bombarded from this to the level that I'm desensitized. Whatever comes to me, I don't even look at it, report it as spam, block it, gone. In some cases, I completely ignore. A bunch of people don't even check their LinkedIn inbox, anymore. They're just there scrolling sometimes. And so how do you reconcile that with doing business? Email, SEO gone with AI now.
Yeah.
SEO used to be, where we used to, okay, I'm researching a project, a product, service. SEO at least is going to give me some in-depth information in terms of where to look for it. Now it's AI, which is, I don't know, GEO, whatever they call it. I don't know. Is there a way to make it predictable? Not yet. ChatGPT is introducing ads into the platform. We'll see. For the time being, events are a safe haven where you can go as a brand and find the relevant people that are relevant to you with some level of intent, and different shows do better at creating intent. Or you can bring your own users together and prospects together. Get the users to convert the prospects. Get the users to buy more and upsell them. Get the users to learn about your product and use content that way. And so connection then becomes key in this dynamic, because again, the content overload, sorry, this is a very long answer.
No, I love this.
Content overload, because it's not an easy concept to explain. Yeah. If I have to make it super simple for anybody that is bored so far listening to me, it's literally too much content. Post-pandemic, we don't need to come to your event to listen to something. I want either content that is super advanced and relevant and hands-on about, say, your platform. Say, I work with a lot of user conferences with software. Content there is still very important because people want to learn about how to use the platform better. So, but here's the twist. They want to learn together. They don't want to learn by them. They just don't want to sit in a session with someone like demoing stuff. They want to be in labs. They want to be in cohorts. They want to be in workshops. They want to be in that together learning opportunity that is different from a single one broadcast type of opportunity where I'm just listening to something. So again, if I have to listen in a room, maybe I'm distraction free in a room, in person has a kick. So still space for that. But honestly, I can be from my computer, no noise, YouTube or whatever. I'm going to learn about this at my pace, or listening to it while I'm walking in a podcast, whatever. Yep. So I think that classroom environment, that connection environment duplicates everything, as a dinner duplicates the prospect to user conversion, because everybody all of a sudden is having fun, and they unconsciously thank you as the facilitator for that opportunity. And they immediately regard your brand in a different way. And so from a branding perspective and from a clear hands-on perspective, you have an edge.
Yeah. Kind of tying that back or tethering us back to uh, the connection point. What I heard you say in that is different forms of content still apply, uh, but we should be almost thinking about the segmentation of our events into, these buckets of different connection opportunities, right? Like the micro event piece of this. And micro event, I think, is a term that might be gaining some legs. It's, when we say micro event, we mean these small group connections, but it can be a deep dive with a speaker roundtable. It can be a hands-on lab. It can be a sponsorship opportunity in the canal shops at the Venetian that is a restaurant buyout for lunch. It can be an offsite dinner that is sponsored by adjacent group to the conference itself. What you just said is that is the general push because it gives you those moments of connection, correct? Like it
is. Yeah, it is. It is one of the strongest assets that you have. Then to make it become topical as well, because again, the problem, micro events matter a lot for relevancies. If you attend an event like South by Southwest, right, and there's hundreds of thousands of people, where do you find your crowd? Where do you find, inspiration, serendipity is great, but then it becomes overwhelmed, especially with younger generations. It's very easy to be overwhelmed very quickly by these large shows. And for brands to be exposed to an audience that is not relevant. So micro events kind of pull it all together because they give you the opportunity to run a CMO summit as part of South by Southwest and have all the CMOs in the room and all the brands interested in that conversation in the room as well. So you immediately match buyer and seller and you take that conversation away from the main floor, show floor. Then some companies will be on the main show floors because they have consumer brands that need to appeal to everybody else, or large brands that want to create awareness into larger B2B environments. But I guess at least you have a clear way for attendees to say, this is my tribe, this is my crew, this is where I want to be, this is the content that is relevant to me. I don't need to search in the agenda for 100 sessions. I know where to go and know where the content that I need is going to be. Yeah. And for brands to say, this is the audience that we need. And so these opportunities are very popular now within larger shows, but also within specific user conferences and activations that companies do at larger shows or within their user conferences. Yeah.
And to enhance that connection point for your attendees, kind of chiming back to the HubSpot example that you brought up with AI, like we are not so far away from being able to curate the experience to the persona at time of registration, right? So do you believe in a world where you will be able to attend a CES or a Dreamforce where the path that you are on has been basically hand selected for you? And is that how we should be thinking about how we are structuring a bit of this?
Kind of, but be careful. But be careful, because the risk that we have in front of us of hyper-personalizing everything in events is to end up in the same bubbles that the algorithm has created for us online. Sure. That's the actual problem. And what events have that it's different from social media is the ability to expose you in a very high context environment that it's very involving all your senses, overwhelming experience, to different point of views, topics that you didn't know existed, people that are going to have complete opposite opinion that you have. If we create more personalization, the risk is to create more bubbles of my people, my way of thinking, my topics, and then immediately becomes boring, same thing, seen it, or not really having an impact. And at the end of the day, the this is an important one for anybody listening that is recent to the industry. And I mean, by recent, I mean the past 10 years. The evolution of the founding fathers or mothers of the events industry from a conceptual perspective. If you spent any time studying what the ones before us define, how they define the business events industry, is changing behaviors. So that should be at the core of what you do. So if people enter the room and they exit in the same state, you failed. So if people come to your event and find the same people that they know and the same content that they've seen a ton of times, there's no value in your event whatsoever. Your job is to challenge these perspectives, to introduce people to new people, to have opposing views in the state. This is a wider concept that's so important right now, right? Polarization on social media.
Yep.
Events are the opposite of that. You'll find that those that are fighting online, put them together in a room, and you see how they're going to become friends in a few minutes. Or at least they're not going to be at themselves going with rage. So very important to have that clear. And so yes, personalization, especially for huge events where there's so much going on, at least to give a direction. But then you should leave room for serendipity. You should leave room for people to come together without agendas, to have really minimal context for the magic to happen, to be intentional about making the magic happen, but not to over contextualize and over push too much data into these activations, because then it becomes a problem of becoming too transactional, losing the human touch, losing the emotion, and then boring. This is a problem that we have in our event industry events where, why should I bother to go to the top 3-4 events in the industry again and again and again? It's the same people. It's the same people. Its content is the same. There's hardly anything new. So why should I matter? And you'll find that those forward-thinking event professionals in our industry, you find them at South by, at CES, you find it outside of the industry, because they understood that they need to be out of the bubble to bring real innovation to the industry. Because the bubble of the industry hasn't produced any single type of innovation in the past 20 years.
Bold statement. But the data-backed statement in that as well, right? You're not making that claim because you don't have the research to back it up, right? And I do think what I took away from what you just said is there is the persona you are signing up for, but there is also the intention you are hoping to get or coming to the event with, right? So it has to kind of be a combination of the two of those things. Are you hoping to make connections? Are you hoping to learn about product? Are you hoping to brush elbows with CMOs, right? Those are all things that you are applying to the event versus who you are coming to the event. So I almost want to say that there has to be some spice of intention sprinkled onto the personas you are creating to come up with that happy medium of what a perfected agenda might look like for you.
That's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
And I would say that with AI, especially with voice mode, if I'm able to answer some questions and have a conversation with someone, that might be AI, but that is filling out my registration form. I am going to be much more willing to divulge more information than I would by clicking buttons on a form, right?
For sure. You'd be amazed of how companies are doing a lot, the agencies are doing a lot to test, research hypotheses that were gut feeling in the past from a planning perspective, now into clear ideas that we're testing with user groups, with AI user groups sometimes. There's companies now that can pull, right, your potential target audience 90 to 95% accurate responses that is completely AI generated. So you don't need even user research anymore. Like AI can mimic
Sure.
your attendees' needs, or you can test ideas by inputting the data into smart systems like Collie Adams is doing with Vogdams and his digital doppelganger, where it's literally built a doppelganger for the audience of your events. And you can test ideas constantly with the audience and get immediate feedback of whether that idea is going to go down well or not. And like these are companies that are using it, are the biggest car companies in Europe right now. So it's not like, minor events.
Yeah.
It's becoming the way of doing things. So exciting, super exciting. I always push on both ends. I push on, like, let's remember this is about business, but also let's remember this is about humans and like keeping things human and strike a balance between the two.
Yeah, I love that uh, it has to be both, right? We have to be driving data. We have to be driving connection. The role of the planner, more so than ever, is to be that bridge and that connection point between both of those states, and the translator, right? We need to be able to take what the experience was and turn it into the report that lands at all levels of our organization. And it's not easy to do. uh, and there's a lot of different hats that planners have to wear, to be able to accomplish that successfully. And to kind of round out this conversation, all of that is probably made easier with applied AI done correctly, right? You are able to operate more efficiently, effectively, roll reports up, presentations up, with data that you've collected more effectively when AI is applied properly. Closing thoughts here. What a journey we've been on, that I just took us back through. Is there anything else that is relevant to these topics that we've been talking about today that you would like to bookend our conversation with?
No, I think we covered pretty much quite a lot, and in depth as well. I feel that the message here to anybody listening that has been in the events industry for a long time, I think we're entering a phase where there's going to be a lot of refresh from human resources perspective, and there's only two types of people that are going to resist and kind of like stay long term. Hyper analytical people that have strategy at the core, or highly operational people that make things happen, and can translate big ideas into facts and projects. I feel, from an experiential perspective, from an operational perspective, that's still going to be the biggest competitive advantage that we have as an industry. The fact that ChatGPT can come up with ideas, great. You can 3D print, a huge activation at a big trade show or a whole event. So the need to have extremely operational people that understand the business needs and can translate marketing messages into things that exist that you can touch and then can bring it back to the business. I feel if you are able to be in that the element, in that kind of framework, I feel you're going to be safe for many years to come. No way, not a chance, looking at things that capability, that skill could be replaced. Anything else, yeah, I would start to be very concerned and start, which means that you should really make a change in the way you do things, whether it's about getting to learn more about AI, getting to learn more about marketing and ROI and what the events role is within those and how AI helps in that, whether it's about getting to know the technology behind events better, whether it's about understanding the business better and what other events are doing in that sense that is resonating with the leadership. I feel that matters a lot. I think there's no room to come up with creative ideas or to go to an event and see something and say, "Oh yeah, I want to do that." That is like how the industry used to operate and
Mhm.
cannot operate anymore. I've been in teams, in kickoff teams. We've run a mastermind, and we're doing the second year this year with a larger group within our community where dozens of people came up with their problems. And at the beginning, every conversation starts with saying, "We're losing money. We don't know how we're tracking. We don't know this. We don't know that." You cannot know. You have to know.
Yep. Yeah.
There's no
And
excuse.
I I want to leave on a positive of like
Hmm.
it you aren't alone in education anymore, right? Like you don't need to go to school to open up ChatGPT or Gemini and ask a question. Uh, and you don't need to you know, sure, you might need to have Copilot or Gemini greenlit in your environment so that you can use it. But to throw in a deck or a document or a spreadsheet and say, like, I don't know what this means, please break this down for me. So to transition from that kind of event planner state to event strategist state is, I think, easier than it ever has been, as long as you are open to learning and educating yourself and applying those learnings forward. And we live in this era now that it is about kind of the why behind everything, and it is no longer about the because I said so. We have to go that layer deeper, and luckily we have the tools to kind of help us operate more efficiently in that learning process. So I agree completely of it is now time to evolve as the world is evolving, and everyone should be reinvesting in the education of what's going to be the next step of their development, right?
Totally. That you summed it up perfectly. I mean, the need to be curious, to learn more, that will make a difference. Because again, if you pass your job to AI, why do we need you,
Yep.
right? If your job is like 90% made of an output of ChatGPT, ask yourself, why should I be here? And that should push you to be more curious, to learn more, to question whatever comes back from AI, to wanting to learn more, to go deeper, to understand like the mechanics of whatever is around us. You have a ton of tools, you have YouTube channels, you have a bunch of content creators on LinkedIn that are like focusing on the right aspects of things, communities. There's so much free opportunities to attend as a hosted buyer, right? So much happening around us, so many opportunities, but you got to be centered. And I think you got to be driven. And I think now is the most important time. And I come from a place of let's protect our community. Let's, keep it together. Let's keep as many people as possible, especially the people that have been around for a long time, for as long as possible around. Because we need that input. We need that experience. Can't lose it. And so when I make these, when I make these statements and I come up with these conversations purely for from a place of protection, because I've seen what happened during COVID and it wasn't nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Julius, thank you so much for your time today. Any sort of call out, where would you like people to find you today?
Whatever they want. Julius Solaris on LinkedIn is obviously my main point of contact where a lot of content comes up. From LinkedIn is a cascade of newsletter, BoldPush Plus, our community, learning platform, consulting on boldpush.com, whatever, depending on their familiarity with me. I created enough touch points to see me to the level where people wants to experience me, whether it's a one-off or there's people that have been around since my blogging days, and now I have like 10, 15 years of listening to me. I don't know how they do it.
It's because you have great things to say, including our what I would call a very rich conversation today. So with that, we will make sure to make sure people know and where to find you. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Gregory, and congrats for what you do and for what you're bringing to the industry. Can't wait to see what's next, and
Yeah.
best of luck in this journey.
Thank you. Thank you.